Have you ever felt like your past disqualifies you from being used by God? Like the choices you've made or the things that were done to you have written a permanent label on your life? Well, what if I told you that one of the most heroic women in the Bible was a prostitute? That's right. Not a queen, not a priest's wife, not even a virtuous widow, but a woman whose house was known for, well, let's just say, night visitors. Her name was Rahab. Her story is insane, full of danger, faith, and the kind of redemption that makes your jaw drop. Here's the wild part. She didn't just help save Israel. She became part of the lineage of Jesus Christ. You heard that right. Jesus, the Son of God, has a former prostitute in his family tree. So the question is, how does someone go from the red light district to the Hall of Faith? How does a woman with a scandalous reputation become the only one in her entire city who chooses God? If you've ever felt like you're too far gone, this story is for you. If you've ever wondered whether God sees you, knows your name, or can rewrite your story, don't move a muscle. Because Rahab's story might just be your story too. Let's begin in the ancient city of Jericho. The sun sets over Jericho, casting long golden shadows on the thick, towering walls that surround the city. These weren't just ordinary walls. They were a symbol of pride, power, and invincibility. The kind of walls you don't just climb. You don't break through. You don't even mess with. Jericho was one of the oldest cities in the world. A fortress, a trade hub, a pagan stronghold. People came from all over to sell goods, strike deals, and worship idols. It was a city of noise, pleasure, commerce, and fear. Because everyone had heard about Israel. Yes, Israel. The slaves who somehow escaped Egypt. Stories were spreading like wildfire. Did you hear what happened at the Red Sea? The waters split in half. Their God, he doesn't fight with them. He fights for them. 2 Amorite kings tried to stop them, both destroyed. And now, this wandering people was camped just outside the Jordan River, ready to cross. Jericho was on edge. Soldiers sharpened swords. Leaders whispered behind closed doors. Merchants stocked up and locked up. And right on the city wall, built into the stone, was a house. Not just any house. Rahab's house. Now, Rahab wasn't exactly someone you invited to dinner with your in-laws. She was known, by men, by reputation, a provider of hospitality in the most intimate sense. But don't be quick to judge her. Because in ancient Jericho, survival wasn't easy for women. And Rahab wasn't helpless. She was street smart, sharp-eyed, and always listening. And what she heard terrified her. The God of Israel wasn't like the idols of her people. He didn't demand sacrifices to be bribed. He showed up. He fought. He defended his people. And something deep inside Rahab whispered, "This is real. This God is different. And if he's coming, I want to be on his side." That spark, tiny as it was enough. Because when 2 Israelite spies showed up at her door, Rahab did something unthinkable. She didn't report them. She didn't scream. She let them in. And by doing that, she stepped into the most dangerous and most important moment of her life. 2 men stood in the shadows just beyond Jericho's gates. Their names were unknown. Scripture doesn't tell us, but we know what they were: spies. Sent by Joshua himself, leader of Israel. Their mission was to slip into the city, gather intel, and return unseen. Easier said than done. Jericho was fortified, guarded, and paranoid. A stranger stuck out like blood on snow. But the spies had a plan. Or so they thought. Let's find a place where no one will ask questions. Somewhere strangers come and go. Somewhere discreet, like the house of a prostitute. So they crept into Rahab's quarters. Now picture this. Rahab, in her mid-30s, used to strange visitors, but these were different. They didn't leer. They didn't haggle. They were alert and tense, whispering in a foreign tongue. And Rahab knew in a heartbeat. These weren't clients. These were Israelites. And for a flicker of a second, she panicked. If anyone finds them here, I'm dead. But then, another voice inside. Maybe this is the moment I've been waiting for. She made a snap decision. She led them in, closed the door, and locked it. And not a moment too soon, because word had already spread through Jericho. 2 Israelite men have entered the city. We think they went into Rahab's house. Soldiers were dispatched. Footsteps thundered on the street. Fists pounded her door. Open up. The king commands it. Rahab's heart pounded in her chest. Everything was at risk. Her business, her family, her life. But calmly, she walked to the door. She smiled and lied. Yes, they came to me, but I didn't know where they were from. They left before the gates closed. If you hurry, you might catch them. She sent the guards on a wild goose chase. Meanwhile, the spies were hidden beneath flax stalks on her roof, sweating, listening, and praying. What made Rahab take such a risk? She wasn't Jewish. She wasn't religious. She didn't know the law of Moses. But she had heard the stories. And the stories had built something in her. Faith. A kind of faith that didn't wait for all the facts. A faith that acted. Because deep in her spirit, she knew. Their God is real. Their God is powerful. And maybe, just maybe, He's merciful. That night, after the soldiers left, Rahab climbed to the roof. She looked at the 2 men. Eyes sharp. Voice steady. And what she said next was unlike anything anyone in Jericho would have dared to say. I know the Lord has given this land to you, she began. Everyone here is terrified. We've heard how your God dried up the Red Sea, how He defeated mighty kings. When we heard it, our hearts melted with fear. But me, I don't just fear your God. I believe in Him. Silence. The spies stared, stunned. In this pagan city, among idol worshippers, a woman like Rahab was the only one to confess faith in the God of Israel. Imagine that. When all of Jericho was paralyzed by fear, Rahab responded with faith. She didn't have the Torah. She didn't grow up in a godly home. But she had heard enough to believe. And she wasn't just going to believe quietly. She was going to act. She turned to the men and made a bold request. I helped you. Now swear to me by your God. When your people come to take this land, spare my life. Spare my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters. Give me a sign. And the spies, still stunned by her bravery, gave her a promise. When we return, we will protect you. You have our word. They gave her instructions. Hang a scarlet rope from your window. Keep your family inside. Don't leave this house. And when Jericho falls, we will find you. One of them said, but only if you do exactly as we say. He pulled a scarlet cord from his pouch. The color of blood. The color of sacrifice. Tie this in your window. When we come back, this is the sign we'll look for. Rahab took it slowly. It was small and fragile. Seemed too simple to matter. But isn't that how God works? A rainbow after the flood. A lamb's blood over a door. A scarlet rope in a prostitute's window. This wasn't just about a signal. This was symbolism, a visual declaration of faith. The rope screamed, "This house is marked. This woman believes. This family belongs to the God of Israel." And think about this. Rahab had no guarantee the spies would survive. No idea if they'd make it back. But she obeyed anyway. She tied that rope in her window immediately. It fluttered against the stone wall, visible for everyone in the city to see. Think about that level of risk. Any soldier walking past could have seen it and guessed. Why the red rope, Rahab? You siding with the Israelites? She could have been executed on the spot, but Rahab didn't care. She wasn't hiding her faith anymore. She was marking her territory with it. Over the next few days, Rahab got to work. Pack your things. You're coming to my house. Don't ask questions. Just trust me. Imagine those conversations. Her brothers were probably skeptical. Her parents were embarrassed. Her neighbors were confused. But Rahab wouldn't be moved. This wasn't about convincing people. It was about covering them. And she did. Then came the sound. The marching. The shouting. The trumpets. Jericho shook. Its people ran to the walls. But Rahab and her family stayed inside, holding each other, praying silently, clutching the only thing they had, a scarlet cord in a window. Let me ask you, what are you holding on to when everything else is shaking? When others panic, do you trust? When judgment comes, are you inside the house marked by grace? The scarlet rope was a shadow of something much bigger. Someone who would come later and shed his blood to save the world. But for now, for Rahab, it was enough. Because the deal had been made. The promise had been spoken. And soon, everything was going to change. Day 1. The city of Jericho held its breath. From Rahab's window, she could see them, Israel's army, marching silently around the walls. They were not attacking or shouting. They were just walking. What kind of war is this? What army circles a city and does nothing? People scoffed. Some laughed and threw insults from the rooftops. But Rahab didn't laugh. She stayed inside with her family. Her eyes locked on the scarlet rope swaying outside her window. Day 2. Same thing. Marching. Silence. Trumpets. Then nothing. No siege. No arrows. Just a strange, eerie rhythm. By day 4, the jokes turned into questions. By day 6, fear began to rise. And Rahab just kept waiting, holding on and praying that the God she believed in was real. Day 7, the marching began early. But this time, it didn't stop. They circled the city once. Then again, and again. 7 times they marched. And on the 7th lap, something happened. Trumpets blasted. Voices roared. And suddenly, the ground shook. The walls of Jericho didn't just crack, they crumbled. Entire sections collapsed like sandcastles in the wind. Screams echoed. Dust filled the sky. The entire city fell to its knees. Except for one house. One lone wall still stood. A small window with a scarlet cord. Rahab's house. The promise held. The deal stood firm. The Israelite soldiers rushed in, taking the city. But a few men made a direct line for that house. The spies had returned. They knocked. They opened the door. And Rahab stepped out, not as a prostitute, but as a survivor, a believer, a woman covered by mercy. Rahab was brought out, along with her mother, father, and siblings. The entire household was spared, but God wasn't finished. Rahab didn't return to her old life. She became part of Israel. She married a man named Salmon. She had a son, Boaz. Boaz married Ruth. They had Obed. Obed had Jesse. Jesse had David. And generations later, from Rahab's line came Jesus Christ. From the brothel to the bloodline of the Messiah. Only God can write a story like that. Let me ask you, what's your Jericho? What battle are you watching, wondering if you'll survive? What scarlet thread are you trusting in? Because if Rahab's story proves anything, it's this. Your past doesn't disqualify you. Faith, even in fear, still counts. And when you tie your hope to God's promise, the walls may fall, but you will stand. when the smoke cleared, when the cries faded, when Jericho's mighty walls lay in ruins. One woman stood tall, cloaked not in shame, but in mercy. Rahab. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She walked out with her head high, covered by the God she barely knew, but fully trusted. And that's where most stories might end. But not God's. Because Rahab didn't just get saved. She got adopted, brought into the nation of Israel, given a home, a future, a family, and somewhere along the way, she met a man. His name was Salmon, a respected man of Israel. He didn't see Rahab as her past. He saw her as her faith. They married. They had a child, a little boy named Boaz. Yes, that Boaz. The one who would later marry Ruth, the Moabite outsider. Seems like Boaz had a soft spot for women with complicated pasts and powerful faith. And through them came a lineage. Obed, Jesse, David the shepherd king, and eventually, Jesus. Matthew 1 verse 5 to 6 lists Rahab by name in the genealogy of Christ. Let that sink in. When God chose the family line for his son, he included Rahab. The world saw a harlot. God saw a hero. The world saw scandal. God saw destiny. Have you ever let your past define your worth? Have people tried to label you based on mistakes, trauma, or reputation? If so, Rahab is your reminder that God uses the unlikely. He doesn't write people off. He writes them into his plan. And Rahab didn't just get a second chance. She got a legacy. So maybe your story doesn't start in the temple. Maybe it starts in the rubble, in regret, in ruin. But with God, that's more than enough. Because when your life is marked by faith, even if it's messy, even if it's late, God can still write a miracle. So, who are you in this story? Are you still behind the wall, terrified of what's coming? Or are you hanging your scarlet cord, choosing faith over fear? Like Rahab, maybe this is your moment. Maybe today is the day your story turns. What does Rahab's story teach us? It teaches us that faith isn't about where you start. It's about where you place your trust. Rahab was a woman living in a broken system with a shattered reputation, surrounded by fear. And yet, she made one decision. She believed, not because she had all the answers, not because she lived a holy life, but because she had heard about a God who was different. A God who rescued slaves, who parted seas, who fought for the weak, and who welcomed outsiders. Rahab didn't let her past disqualify her from her future. She didn't stay in shame. She acted in faith, and that changed everything. So what about you? Have you written yourself off? Do you believe God can only use people with clean records and perfect stories? Because Rahab proves that God rewrites legacies. She went from the edge of society to the center of salvation history. And if God can use Rahab, he can use you. If this story spoke to you, then maybe it's because, like Rahab, you're on the edge of something new. A new faith, a new decision, a new legacy. So here's what I want you to do. Leave a comment below. I'm hanging my scarlet cord. Let that be your faith declaration today. Share this video with someone who feels disqualified, because they need to know God sees more. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more powerful, real, and raw Bible stories retold for people like you. Until next time, hold on to the scarlet cord, because faith still saves.